is a master's student working with us, as well as Jake's going to, I think, appear again with some tips around sleep. So we already know Jake's favorite snack, but Hannah's favorite snack is
bananas and peanut butter.
Great. So when you're ready, Hannah.
So similar to Becky and Jake, I'm also a member of the movement behavior analyses group that's within the Guelph Family Health Study. So collectively, sleep, physical activity, and sedentary behavior are often referred to as the movement behaviors. And I really like this image here because it shows the collective nature of these behaviors and how they can occur fluidly throughout the day. With physical activity, you can see is further broken down into its different intensities. And then on the outer ring of this figure, we can see the different postures that these behaviors have been defined to occur in. So for example, sleep may take place in a seated, reclined, or lying posture. And Becky previously outlined the physical activity and sedentary behavior of the kids in the study. And now we'll move our focus to the other movement behavior, which is sleep, which obviously encompasses a large portion of our day and is vital to our overall health. We've seen that sleep is beneficial to us emotionally, cognitively, and physically as it improves concentration, attention, memory, and increases our energy levels throughout the day. So organizations such as the Canadian Society for Exercise Physiology and the World Health Organization have developed guidelines for sleep for specific age groups. And so the children in the Guelph Family Health Study fall into 3 of these different age groups. Toddlers, so that's children aged 1 to 2 years, it's recommended that they obtain a minimum of 11 to 14 hours of sleep per day. And this would include both naps and nighttime sleep. For preschoolers, so that's children aged 3 to 4 years, it's recommended that they acquire 10 to 13 hours of sleep. And this may include naps depending on the child's schedule, and then obviously includes nighttime sleep. And then lastly, youth, so that's children aged 5 to 13 years, it's recommended that they acquire 9 to 11 hours of nighttime sleep. And so similar to physical activity and sedentary behavior, we measure the children in the Guelph Family Health Study sleep using the accelerometers and the activity log sheets. And now I'll just go into some of the data we have for the children who are aged 3 to 5 years in the study. And I'll outline the amount that they're sleeping and then also the percentage of them who are meeting our guidelines. So on average, we see that the 3 to 4-year-old children in the Guelph Family Health Study are sleeping 10.65 hours of sleep per night, which is great. That means that it falls within that 10 to 13 hour guideline. And then when we look at the percentage of our kids who fall into this 3 to 4-year-old age group, we see that 47% of them are meeting the guideline and 53% of them are not. And it's also possible that we're missing part of their sleep as we're only capturing some of that nighttime sleeping behaviors. So we're not capturing some of their daytime napping. And then when we look at this by sex, we see that it's very comparable between the males and females, with the males sleeping on average 10.65 hours of sleep per night and the females sleeping 10.67. And then when we look at the percentage of the kids who are meeting these guidelines, we see that 44% of the males and 50% of the females are meeting these guidelines. And then for those who are not, it's 56% are not and 50% are not for the females. And then moving on to the slightly older kids, so that's the children who are aged 5 years in the study, and the guideline is now 9 to 11 hours. We see that on average, they're sleeping 10.96 hours of sleep per night, which again is great. That means that our average falls within that guideline. And we see that here, 87% of them are meeting their guideline, which again is great, and 13% are not. And then when we split this by sex, we see that males, again, on average are sleeping 11.36 hours and the females are sleeping 10.55 hours, which again is very comparable between the two sexes. And we see here that 75% of males and 100% of the females are meeting this guideline. So again, that's great. And so I really outlined the timing characteristics of the children in this study's sleeping behaviors, but the CSEP guidelines go on to further specify the importance of developing sleep hygiene, and Jake will go more into that now.
Perfect. Thanks, Hannah. Yeah, so sleep hygiene is a term you may not be familiar with, so I'll just define it quick for you. It's habits and practices that are conducive to sleeping well on a regular basis. And one that immediately jumps to mind for most people is trying to avoid screens before bedtime. But there's more to sleep hygiene than just that. As you can see on the screen here, this is another page from my movement guideline resource, which will be available soon again. It is a checklist for a consistent bedtime routine that promotes positive sleep hygiene. This includes doing calming activities before bed, not eating too close to bedtime, ensuring that the room is cool and dark, which is the optimal sleeping environment, and keeping a consistent bedtime and wake time. This checklist can help you keep track and serve as a reminder for what constitutes a good bedtime routine. So now that we've talked about all the movement behaviors, I just wanted to quickly share an additional page from my resource, which is meant to help families track these important behaviors throughout the week. This sheet has a reminder for what the guideline is for each behavior. For example, this is the preschool movement guideline tracker and therefore has 10 to 13 hours under the sleep column, as you can see there. So this is another way to involve children in building the habits for these important movement behaviors and can also make them a fun challenge as well. And just another reminder that sleep resources are available at the Guelph Family Health Study website under the Family Resources tab. And another reminder that my movement guideline, which contains some of the resources that you saw today, like the sleep hygiene checklist, will be available soon under this tab. So thank you again for listening, and I'll pass back over to Jess.
Fab job, Jake.
Well, now I know all the things to do before I go to bed and make sure I have a good sleep.
She was jealous of your checklist. She was like, I want that. So I'll have to print
organization.
I'll have to print it off.